Yo, what is going on, guys? My name is Kyle and welcome back to another Dead by Daylight video. This is part 2 of the perk rework series where I take a look at really bad perks and try to figure out how we can improve them or change them to make them a little more fun. In part 1, a lot of you seem to think that the perk reworks I made were extremely overpowered. I personally don't agree and think they would have all been super niche and they would not have been anywhere close to meta, but I tried to tone it down for this video to make them a little less crazy and a little less different to take into account balancing a little better. If you guys do enjoy this video and want me to continue this rework series, feel free to drop a like down below and subscribe if you're new so you don't miss out on any in the future. Also, go down in the comments and let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the perks on this list. We have 4 survivor perks and 4 killer perks to rework, and we're going to start with survivor perks. The first one is technician. Currently, technician activates when you're on a generator, and if you miss a skill check, it'll prevent the generator from exploding, and it also reduces the audible range of your gen repair noises by 8 meters. This is a very underwhelming perk unless you literally just started the game and can't hit skill checks. So I wanted to add a little buff that might make it a little more useful for the more experienced players. And that buff is removing the sound from repairing gens completely. So this would be very similar to Bite the Bullet, but for gen repairs. The perk would still be relatively weak and would still be aimed towards beginners, but more experienced and aggressive players may still be able to get some use out of it. I think this would be a really interesting mechanic because the killers would have to be more aware if they see someone working on a gen without hearing them. It might allow some really cool situations where you're working on the gen and the killer doesn't even know you're there because they don't hear you. I don't think these situations would be very common, but I do think it would make technician a little more viable and have a little bit more utility out of it. Next up on the list, we have calm spirit. Currently, calm spirit reduces the chance of alerting crows by 100%, and then it also suppresses your urge to scream. So whenever you're hit, you don't scream, and if a doctor does a static blast or something, you also won't scream, and if the killer has like infectious fright, you won't scream there either. So obviously, just hearing that, this is a very situational perk that only really works on a couple killers. The chances of alerting nearby crows isn't necessarily that bad, but most killers don't actually use crows to track survivors because that's a more advanced technique. So I wanted to add one more effect that utilizes the crows that still kind of stays on the theme of like how the crows are linked to your power. So when the killer is within 28 meters of you and you are not in a chase, the killer's aura will be revealed for 3 seconds if they alert a nearby crow. Being within 28 meters of the killer and not being in a chase has a very small window for this perk to activate, so it wouldn't be too overpowered, but it would still allow you to have some situations where you can see where the killer is coming from. So let's say you're working on the gen in the main building of Ormond. There are like 70 different directions that the killer can come through, so it would be nice for calm spirit to allow you to see which direction the killer will be coming through if they alert a crow. This could give you a little bit of an additional warning so you can make the distance to not get hit. All right, the next perk on the list is Vigil. So this is a very scary change, and I just wanted to put it out there just to maybe like stir up ideas, but I think it would make it a lot better. But I don't know how good it would be. Obviously, I'm not a balancing expert. It is not my job to balance perks, so bear with me here. Currently, Vigil makes you recover 20% faster from blindness, exhaustion, hemorrhage, and hindered status effects. Obviously, the only one that's really useful is recovering from exhaustion faster, and it also applies to all other survivors within 8 meters from you. Literally no one runs this unless you're trying to do like an unlimited exhaustion perk build because it does stack with other survivors. However, I wanted to change it up a bit to make it a little more interesting and to allow it to have some more dynamic gameplay use. So while sprinting, your exhaustion timer still continues, but at a 100% slower rate. So a regular exhaustion perk has a 40-second cooldown, but while sprinting, it's at half the speed. So if you were sprinting the entire time, it would take a full 80 seconds to recover from the exhaustion perk, assuming you have tier 3 on both. Fun fact, your exhaustion actually used to go down while you were sprinting, but that was way too overpowered, so they changed it to only while you weren't sprinting. And I think having it go at half speed wouldn't make it that overpowered. It kind of reminds me of self-care. It has this really good mechanic, but it's at half speed, so it kind of balances out a little bit on both sides. I don't know how balanced this would be, so I'm sorry if this sounds completely overpowered or completely underpowered, but I just wanted to bring up the idea and then we can discuss it in the comments if you'd guys like to. The next survivor perk on the list is Buckle Up. I actually have 2 ideas for this, and they are both from Darva's ideas. It would become another anti-slugging perk. Currently, Buckle Up is probably one of the worst perks in the entire game. It allows you to see how far a survivor's recovery progress is if they're within 48 meters. Yeah, it's horrible. It also allows you to see the killer's aura while you are healing them from the dying state. It has literally no use whatsoever. So there are two changes that Otsdarva came up with that I absolutely love. One of them might be a little overpowered, but it sounds extremely fun and extremely useful. If you are within 8 meters of a downed survivor, that survivor gains the ability to pick themselves up from the ground. And then the little buckle up symbol will show in the bottom right of their screen so they know that they can do this. Kind of like Prove Thyself or Leader or any of that. This would be extremely interesting and make for some really cool plays in slugging situations. Because currently the only anti-slugging perks are like Soul Guard, We're Gonna Live Forever, and Unbreakable. All three of these perks are really good, but it would be nice to throw another one into the mix. Because sometimes slugging is absolutely impossible to beat, especially on a killer like Nurse. I personally think this change would be fine, and that's coming from a killer main. It would make slugging a little more risky. The second idea though, so this is a completely different idea, so scrap the first one, is if you pick someone up from the ground, it removes all negative status effects immediately, including exhaustion, blindness, mangled, etc. This would allow for some really unique plays where you can save someone from the ground and they can dead hard immediately, or they can use their sprint burst to go get a save, and maybe if they have Soul Guard, they can go get the save and then still take a hit for them, and then the person on the hook will get a borrow time and you can all get out. It would make some really awesome gameplay mechanics that you would have to play around as killer and play around as survivor. It would be really interactive for both sides, and I think it would make for some really fun moments. So it basically turns into an anti-slugging perk, because currently if you slug correctly, it can turn a game from 0 kills to 4 kills literally within 60 seconds. So another anti-slugging perk would be pretty fun to add to the mix. All right, we are moving on to killer perks now. The first one on the list is Beast of Prey. Currently, Beast of Prey gives you the undetectable status effect when you reach Bloodlust 1. This is such a bad perk. If you can't catch a survivor before Bloodlust 1, it usually means that you're chasing them for too long. Plus, a ton of killers' powers literally remove Bloodlust. So like, if you throw your tentacle with Nemesis, or if you throw a clown bottle, it literally resets your Bloodlust. So this perk is practically useless. I have two possible changes for this. One of them is after unhooking a survivor, you gain a token. At 2 tokens, the next time you enter a chase, you will become undetectable for 14 seconds. This will give the gimmick of this perk a little bit more use because you'll become undetectable when you enter chase. So it still kind of follows the theme of like hunting your prey, but it also rewards playing well because you have to get 2 hooks before it activates. And then I was contemplating removing the ability to get the undetectable status after gaining Bloodlust 1, but I still feel like this first buff wouldn't really make it all too appealing compared to perks like Tinkerer. And my second idea would be that you gain Bloodlust 1 20% faster, and then after reaching Bloodlust 1, you gain Bloodlust 2 40% faster, and then after reaching Bloodlust 2, you gain Bloodlust 3 75% faster. So if you chase someone for a really long time, you get Bloodlust extremely quickly. This would be a good perk for beginners because they tend to chase the same person for a long time, and having extra Bloodlust would really help them. However, for more experienced killers, this really wouldn't do all too much, because if you're chasing someone long enough to get Bloodlust, you're probably chasing them for too long and you're gonna lose the game in the long run. Out of those two ideas, which one would you guys like more? I think they're both very interesting and would both have some really cool mechanics. The next killer perk on the list is Fire Up. Currently, Fire Up gives you a stackable 4% action speed bonus to picking up and dropping survivors, breaking pallets and breakable walls, damaging generators, or vaulting windows up to a maximum of 20%, and then you get a stack every time a generator is completed. So it's basically making you more powerful as time goes on and as the game continues to go in the survivor's favor. However, I don't think this effect is good enough. So I just wanted to add one additional little change that would really fit the theme of like being angered as gens are getting completed. So if a generator is completed within 32 meters of you, you gain a 15% haste effect and all survivors within your terror radius become exposed for 10 seconds. This would be the first perk to kind of counter survivors who are doing gens in your face. This would make survivors a little more wary of when they're going to be popping gens, and if the killer is nearby, they should try to not pop gens. I don't know if this would be too overpowered or too underpowered. However, I do know that this would pair up really well with like pop and ruin, because many survivors will commit to a gen if they know you have one of these two perks to prevent it from being regressed, and some of them will even go down to finish the gen. So this would add an extra layer of protection for the killer. The survivors would have to choose whether or not it would be worth it to be exposed for 10 seconds when the killer has a 15% haste status effect in order to finish the gen and prevent a pop or ruin or anything like that. All right, next up on the list, we have Hangman's Trick. Hangman's Trick is currently a complete joke of a perk. It is so bad. You basically get a noise notification whenever a survivor starts sabotaging a hook, which is literally the most useless power I've ever heard of in my entire life. And it also allows you to see any survivor within 6 meters of a hook if you are carrying a survivor, which can be kind of useful, I guess, but there's so many other better information perks out there. So I kind of wanted to change this second part of the perk where you can see the aura of survivors. I wanted to make it so that each time you pick up a downed survivor, any other survivor within 14 meters of the 3 closest hooks will have their auras revealed to you. This would be the first information perk of survivors close to you and could pair really well with things such as like an agitation starstruck build or barbecue, so you can see survivors in your terror radius and outside of your terror radius. It would just add more information reading abilities and would make the game a little more interesting, in my opinion. This would probably be a very fun perk to pair with agitation and starstruck, because then you know where to go next after you apply starstruck to somebody. Although this might be a little bit of an overpowered combo because starstruck actually lasts for quite a while, so I don't know balancing wise if that would work very well. And then obviously they would keep the sabotaging notification because that literally does nothing, so it's fine. All right, we are finally on to our last perk of the day, and that is Hex Blood Favor. This is probably, actually no, most definitely the worst Hex perk in existence. I don't even understand why this is a Hex perk to begin with, but I wanted to buff it to where it'll keep its Hex status, but make it so that survivors will actually be willing to seek out this Hex totem, because that's what Hex totems are meant to do. For the current state of Blood Favor, every time you hit a survivor with a basic attack, the entity blocks all pallets within a 16-meter radius from your location and prevents them from being thrown down for 15 seconds. How is this even remotely, like, how did this pass the testing team? I don't understand. If you get hit by a basic attack, your best option is to use the speed boost that you get from that basic attack to run to the next loop or to continue running as far as you can, because it wastes the most amount of time for that killer. No one will stay at the same loop if you get hit with a basic attack unless they have save the best for last. But even then, you can usually make it 16 meters to another loop. And it also has a cooldown of 40 seconds. This is horrible. There's literally no use besides possibly preventing a pallet save if someone dies on a pallet. But the likelihood of that happening is so rare that this is just so stupid. So the first change I would like to add is hitting a survivor with a basic attack will block all pallets outside of a 16-meter radius from your location for the next 10 seconds instead of inside of a 16-meter radius, because that is so stupid. And it'll still have the cooldown. So now a survivor will have to notice that they have Blood Favor and will have to stay at the loop instead of just go to another loop like you do normally. This would make it a little scarier because a lot of the killer's time is wasted with survivors who hold W key. Another buff I wanted to add is that any pallets within a 16-meter radius that have been thrown down already but not yet broken will be broken immediately, kind of similar to the Spirit Fury animation where they just like disintegrate. So now you have two abilities. You block pallets outside of the 16-meter radius and you break already dropped pallets within the 16-meter radius. And then just as a tiny bit of a nerf, I wanted to reduce the blocked pallet time from 15 seconds to 12 seconds just so that it's not completely overpowered, but it is a Hex perk, so it should be at least somewhat strong. If you guys agree or disagree with any of the perks on this list, feel free to let me know down in the comments below. Also, if you want to come join my Discord server, I have the link in the description. There you can talk to me, ask me questions, find other people to play Dead by Daylight with, and do all sorts of stuff. You can even play games with the bots. Also, if you guys did enjoy this video, feel free to drop a like and subscribe down below. But yeah, guys, I think that's all I have for you today. I will probably be doing more of these rework series because I think it is a very interesting idea and a very fun idea to try to change things to make them better or worse. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you today, so I will see you all in the next one. Peace!